Welcome to Good Dog Nation, the weekly video podcast that's all about having a good dog. Hosted by Kim Merritt, co-founder of GoodDogInABox.com and GoodDogPro.com, and founder of the URL Doctor. This episode is brought to you by GoodDogInABox.com, reward-based dog training and dog bite prevention products for families with kids and dogs, and GoodDogPro.com, the online content subscription and community for dog professionals with reward-based dog training products, curriculums, and online courses to educate, motivate, and positively impact those that work with dogs. Now, let's join Good Dog Nation. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Good Dog Nation. I am Kim Merritt, co-founder of Good Dog in a Box and Good Dog Pro. I want to welcome you today with a very interesting subject. We're going to be talking about music and sound as it relates to dog and dog training and dog behavior. And I do have two very important, interesting guests, even though we can only see one of them. But our first guest is Julie Dorsey-Oskerka. She is the co-author of Adopting a Dog, Start Off Right with a Sound Beginning, and founder of a Sound Beginning program, which is a 14-day program designed to reduce and eliminate stress during the first days you bring a new dog home. Julie is a rally judge and member of APDT, the Pet Professionals Guild, and the Dog Writers Association of America. Welcome, Julie, even though we can't see you.
Well, my Mac doesn't apparently want to let you see me today, so that's okay. I can talk and we can see both you and our lead trainer, Steve Frost. So
yes,
I'm all right.
And let me introduce Steve Frost. So Steve is a professional trainer and educator. He is a Karen Pryor Academy certified trainer. He is a shelter behavior affiliate with the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. He is also a certified professional bird trainer, knowledge assessed, and he is the shelter program manager and in-home behavioral trainer at A Sound Beginning. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And it's such a pleasure to have both of you. So let's start with what exactly is A Sound Beginning and where did the origins of this program come from?
Oh boy, you're going to take me all the way back to the cave. Okay. The program was started, basically we started it about five, 6 years ago when we wrote the book. And it was published in 2013. I ended up self-publishing it in 2014 because I wanted to be able to get the price down to where we could be able to offer it to shelters and rescue at a price that they could afford, so that it would be a benefit to go home with an adopter and the dog at the time of adoption. That's when it's really needed. That's when support is really needed. So the reason why the book was even put together was because I used to be a trainer, an active trainer with people coming into family dog classes and all those kinds of things. And I kept seeing people coming in and going, God, I wish they would have known about this 3 weeks ago when they got the dog instead of now, because now I'm fixing behavior problems instead of preventing them in the first place. And then I started seeing what rescues and shelters were giving out, which was like multiple pages of different things to look up on the internet and all sorts of stuff. And it was all hodgepodge. And I thought to myself as an adopter, there's no way I'm going to look through all that stuff. So I talked to my good friend and co-author, Pat Rattray, and I said, I really want to write a book that's going to be something easy that we could give to people. So instead of being able to go home with a trainer, let's give them this book, next best thing. So we began writing it. We put it together. We had a great editing staff that really narrowed it down into the very simple style. So you only have to read a couple pages a day. And that's pretty much how it started. And then after a year of the book being published, I said, we really need to offer people in-class training, because a lot of people just don't quite get it when they just read. They really need to be able to see somebody do some of the exercises. They really need to be able to have that personal coaching and that support that they need. So that's how we started the Sound Beginning program. And one of my friends who is a Karen Pryor Academy graduate, Amy Saletta, she said, oh, well, I can help you. We can turn it into a modular program, and I can help you set it up and everything. So she started helping us write the all the handouts that we use for the class and everything. And she started doing that. And then the program started taking off. And then we started getting calls for in-homes. And then boom, that's where Steve came in. And so it's just continually been growing since then in a lot of different directions.
So what is the music component? And how does that work?
That's my favorite part. I could talk about that forever, but I'll keep it short. So the short background story about how that happened is when I used to teach competition obedience, I saw people getting so very stressed out because, you know, the dog wasn't exactly in heel position. I'm going to lose a half of a point. Oh my goodness. And even though these people were only being taught and only using positive reinforcement techniques, it didn't help them with their stress level. So I started playing music and having them, you know, heel to the music. And then the mood just totally changed in the room that I was teaching. And I thought, this is a good idea. And then one of my veterinary friends came back from a conference and she said, oh, I just worked with Joshua Leeds, who is actually, he was the founder of bioacoustics for animals and research and everything. And he was doing studies at the time on how the effects of sound will reduce stress in a shelter environment. And so she said, you have got to get his book. You've got to read this. And then you've also got to read this book on neurology from this professor. And so I got all that stuff and I started, you know, just downloading it all into my brain. And I said, this is really interesting. I love it. So I started applying the basic principles of sound, which is, you know, it goes really far back to just common sense in a way. If you want to get a dog to come when called, you're going to use a high-pitched voice. Come, 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 come. And if you want to get an animal to slow down, you're going to say, whoa, easy. That's the very basic principle of how sound works. So high-pitched notes create activity in the brain, and the lower notes on the register will promote a calming effect. But it also is interesting when you're using harmonies that are simple, not complex. You're actually putting the brain into what's called passive listening. And then that allows the brain waves to change, which reduces stress and supports the brain's ability to be able to learn something new. So combining the exercises that we do in this book with just that low-level sound of the sound therapy music in the background, it really speeds up the learning process, and it just helps the human stay calm, which allows the dog to learn, and that's pretty much how it works. And Steve was using it when he was he used to be the behavior manager at shelter that we met him at, and he can tell you about this part of it, but they did start using the music in the shelter, and you could see a difference there. And in fact, they still use the music too. I think they use different kinds of music and stuff, but right, Steve?
Yep, that's true. And what we noticed, you know, just experimenting, we used to have staff listen to the, you know, to the radio, and they'd be listening to all sorts of stuff, just really based on their personal preferences. And really, when we took the time to actually observe the animals, you know, just that slower tempo, that simpler kind of solo, somewhat classical music really just seemed to resonate well with the animals and was very complementary to what we're doing. And certainly, to add to everything that Julie has said, one of the facets, you know, that I really enjoy about the music is that when we're in our group classes, for example, that music comes on prior to us training, wheeling and dealing a lot of treats with our dogs and having a good time, and it stays on the entirety of that good time that we're having in class with these dogs. So it really just builds a good emotional association. And then when you take that home, you know, and there may be a situation where you're getting ready to leave your dog home, or there's maybe something challenging that you're working on, you know, you really reap the benefit of that emotional association to that music that has really been built up in class as well, in addition to its natural calming properties.
So are your clients, let's start with dog owners. Is a dog owner using this? Are they playing it in the background at home all the time, or just when they're training with their dog or working with their dog?
We've got some, well, I can tell you real fast with some of our foster homes, they, right from like Illinois Doberman Rescue Plus, I've heard that some of their foster homes, they've go through Spotify, and that music's on 24/7 for all their foster dogs that they have, because it really does help the dogs stay calm, less barking, less pacing, panting, and all the stressors just really reduce. And people will use the music when they're practicing the lessons, but most people use it when they're leaving the dog alone. And when they think there's going to be times of stress, like they're having company over, so they'll have the dog in a safe place, like the dog's comfortable area of the house, and they'll have the music playing, and they'll give the dog a long-lasting chewy to work on. That way, the positive emotional association of new people coming into the house is, oh, this is where I go to my area and I'm calm. I can hear that music. I know what that means. I'm eating a bone that it makes me feel better. And then I'm looking at those new people in the house, and you know what? I kind of like having those new people in the house, because that's when good things happen to me over here. And that's one of the things that Steve really tries to help with people understand, how to be able to apply this in the home, not just in the classroom, because he's done both. He's done the classroom stuff, but then basically he's just taking that and teaching them how to apply it in the home situation, so that he reduces things like that stranger danger stuff. Right, Steve?
Absolutely. And I think that's where the challenge lies for a lot of folks is, we can understand these things in theory, but the practical application is totally different, especially with respect to what your home situation looks like, what the needs are of your individual animal. And that's where it can be just so helpful and advantageous to have a professional set of eyes, just on you, your situation, and your dog, to really make the most of that relationship, especially early on, when that dog is fairly new, which is really what our program originally was designed for.
So is the music that is part of your program, talk about that. Is it specific songs? Is it specific tunes, melodies? Was it written just for your program, or is it existing music?
Well, no, the music that's in our program was created by my darling, sweet, wonderful husband. And I'm not getting paid to say that either. He's a good boy. But he's been a musician his whole life, and he's a pianist, and he's also an on-air radio host, and his main thing is jazz, but he's always his life, he's always singing, 24/7. Every time if he's awake, he's singing. He's either humming or he's singing, or something. That's who he is. So when I originally wrote the book, I had used a different musician, and the music was was good and everything, but when I went to go self-publish, I was stuck with that. Oh no, I have to get the price down, which means I have to control the music myself as well too. So I looked at my husband, and my husband goes, well, hey, I'm right here. I'm an asset. And all I could think to myself is, but if I don't like it, I still have to live with you. So, and I'm not going to be afraid to say, I don't like it, but I don't want to ruin our relationship by that either. So I figured, we'll try it. So I just told him the truth, and I said, well, hey, here you go. So after we set up the date for him to go into the studio and record, and I never once heard him go to the piano and practice. So of course I'm starting, the controlling freak that I am. I'm like, oh my God, he hasn't been practicing. Oh my gosh, he hasn't been practicing. It's going to come out horrible. And I just went to him and I said, you're going to the studio in a couple days. We paid blah, blah, blah money for it. And I haven't seen you practice. And he said, I have. And I said, when? And he said, right here. And he pointed to his head. He said, I've been practicing in here. He said, I don't have to go to the piano and do it. I'm creating it in my mind. Wow. So he goes to the studio and he comes back, and I'm a nervous wreck. And he gives me the basic CD, right? This was just a one-time recording. And he comes back with the CD, and I put the CD in, and this is based on me telling him I need between 55 and 65 beats per minute. I need this many low notes. Don't stay out of this register. I need simple harmonies. I explained all that stuff to him. And he's like, yeah, I know, I got it. So I put on the CD, and immediately, boom, a sense of calm and relief went over me. I'm like, whoa, the first couple notes that came out, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I hit the second song, yes. The third song, yes. There was only one song. He did 13 songs. There was only one song I had to toss out. And these are all stuff that he composed in his brain. So
wow, that's amazing.
I had to throw one song out. He had to go back in And then we needed an hour worth of music so that it would match an hour class, right? And so we were short one, like 5 minutes or something like that. We were short one. So at the very last second, the last song on the CD, it's actually called Cal's Meadow. It's song number 14 on the CD. He created that while he was thinking about me. So that song he just did last minute. He didn't even plan that one in his head, and it just boom, and it filled up the exact hour that I needed and done. So yeah, and I don't have to pay him, so that's why we're doing really well.
And did I read in my research for this that your husband is a graduate of Columbia in Chicago?
Yes.
So is my son.
Oh, wow, how nice. Yeah, it's a great school.
Great school. Great school. Great,
Yeah.
yes, great people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve, from your experience, were you using music as a therapy tool in the shelters you were dealing with before you knew about this program, or did you start using it when you got involved with A Sound Beginning?
So great question. I think, to answer that, it was more of a therapy tool originally for us as staff members, just dealing with the adversity in the day to day. And it was one of those things where, again, the application is so simple and straightforward, but just actually applying that both to animals and to people, that's really where A Sound Beginning came in to really lead the charge in terms of proving that, no, this really does have a good cumulative effect, and it really is very supportive of our efforts. So just in the sense of making it, a nice atmosphere for the people initially, that was pretty intuitive, but really applying it in very purposeful ways to the animals, playing it specifically during meal times, during designated enrichment times, et cetera, to gain the benefit of just that emotional association and pairing. That really came later once I became much more intimately involved in The Sound Beginning. So, the thought and the general idea was there, but the real full implementation that gave us the best results for the animals came a little thereafter once I was able to get in good with Julie and her team.
So in talking about your music use originally kind of for the people around the animals in the shelter, so can this program be used for people and for children?
To say, we're not children professionals, certainly, but behavior is behavior, and behavior is across the board. And training primates, most kids are, it's the exact same as training a dog. It's just the execution is a little different. So fundamentally, all the principles that give us results for our animals will absolutely give us results for children. And I'm still pretty young, about 28 or so, and I can tell you, I got a lot of friends that hit or miss, don't really care for kids. But in addition to being a dog trainer, I'm a bird trainer. I love working with parrots and how complex they are, and so on and so forth. And I love working with kids in the in-home setting, simply because it's like a parrot that really can speak back to me in a purposeful way. And it's nice to work with a learner that is eager, that is enthused, and all the exact same principles of behavior modification, for our animal learners directly apply. And certainly the same holds true for people, simply when we're interacting with our family or coworkers and so on and so forth. So short answer, yes, absolutely.
Well, and I so appreciate what you're talking about. My mother used with me 52, I'm dating myself, almost 52 years ago, Glenn Doman's program of using music for brain development. And I used it with my children 23 and 20 years ago. And I can remember we would play it when the kids were working. There were particular songs that we would put on to decompress when they were falling asleep. My son in particular, we would start to play the one for relaxing, and he would be asleep literally in like a minute. It was just hysterical. But I've used programs like that with not out in the public, but with my own children, and I got great results. And I think my mother would say that she got a pretty good result in using it as well. So Steve, talk about what you're doing now with A Sound Beginning and exactly what your part is in this at this point.
Yeah, so my primary role, I've got kind of two primary functions here. So what I'm largely responsible for is working with various shelters, implementing more higher level protocols, really taking shelters that have good ideas about things, certainly very, very good intentions, but really lack the means to confidently execute them. And unfortunately, while our heart is in there for helping the animals, and that is certainly a priority. Finances are a priority, and business is a priority to keep that shelter alive and certainly viable so that we can continue to save lives. So to help, people who are interested in behavior, who are interested in animal welfare, to help organizations who are interested in simply bettering their operation, what we're able to do and assist with is not only finding out, with what their constrictions are, or what their abilities are, helping them help the animals, but to do so in such a way that not only is viable, but is actually going to increase, their live release rate. That's going to increase their animal turnover. That's going to increase their profitability and prestige as an organization. So that's kind of its own separate entity. And then in addition to that, I am a in-home trainer for sound beginning. So with that, what we'll see is a lot of good people who just want to start off on the right foot in terms of prevention, which is certainly one of my favorite clients. We always tend to say with dogs, it's a lot easier to keep your knives sharp than it is to sharpen your knives. So we always like to prevent those problems from ever occurring. And I got to tell you, when someone gets a dog, somewhat fresh out of the shelter, they had a couple of days of decompression, they've been following the book to a T, and then you come in and you can see that it's just a lovely, sociable dog, well suited to their lifestyle, and they just want to learn how to make sure nothing ever develops, in a negative sense from the animal. It's usually nothing but smooth sailing thereafter. And then certainly on the more extreme end of things, we'll work anywhere from minor to moderate behavioral concerns and problems. Sometimes it really is a very serious concern. Other times it's simply just, more higher level training that these folks need in terms of getting objective behavior. And then with that, we're also very, very fortunate that we're able to network and gain the endorsement of our local board-certified veterinary behaviorists. So we will do a lot of work with a lot of clients whose dogs are truly on the clinical spectrum in regards to their behavior, and just the relief that many people can hear, who have been, of course, very competent, capable, kind, compassionate dog people their whole life. They're just utterly struggling with their pet, and they're looking at it simply as a training problem, but it's not a training problem. This dog truly, much like a human being who suffers from mental illness through no fault of their own, this dog truly is on the clinical spectrum. And when they can see that and hear that from a professional who can help them with that and can really help them through it and explain and articulate what this animal's appropriate needs are and what can be feasible with it, it's just such a relief. Because so many folks take that burden themselves and they think, oh my God, it's been a while since I've had a puppy, or it's been a while since I've had this breed, this must be something I'm doing. But that's not necessarily the case. Just as human beings can be very troubled sometimes, so can our dogs. But doesn't mean we don't love them. It doesn't mean that they don't deserve the help that they need to succeed, which more often than not, they absolutely can.
Right. Julie, talk to us about what your program actually offers right in Chicago for Chicago residents, because obviously you can buy the book and implement the program from anywhere in the United States, but you have services that you're offering, as Steve was just talking about, in-home training thing. Talk about what you're doing right there in Chicago.
Okay, so in the greater Chicagoland area, which we cover a pretty wide area. We go out to Rockford, we go up to the Wisconsin border. We're in west Indiana, and we go farther south than Joliet. So we cover a really, really big area. But what we do in this area is starting out with the very basic. We provide an introduction to training class, which we put together as something free that we work with shelters to be able to promote this within their system as well, but it's open to the community, and that just gives people a really good solid understanding of what positive reinforcement and event marker training is all about, and basically how to do some problem solving, and we do some simple communication understanding so they can learn a little bit about the language of dogs. And it's a really well put together 1-hour program that we offer for free at 4 different locations in the Chicagoland area. That's one of the things that we're going to start taking outside of Chicago. But that I can tell you about later. The other thing that we do in Chicago is obviously we have the in-class training program, and that's the Sound Beginning program, where it's all based on the beginning of the book, but now how to really start applying it in the real world and everything. So there's 4 individual 1-hour classes that can be taken at any time frame, any location. And then it also includes a half an hour phone consultation with one of our behavioral trainers. So that way we can help them with things that are not covered in class. So that's one thing. We also do strictly just on phone training, because like one of the things that Steve does too is we have people with cats, and a lot of times people with cats, you can't just walk into the house and, oh, here, let's work with the kitty, and the kitty's under the bed going, I don't think so. so sometimes just being able to do a phone training session to help them, problem solve with their cat problems, whatever it is. That's one of the things that we have two of our trainers, Steve, and another one of our KPA trainers, Liz Geisen. They both do a lot of work with cats because they're very skilled in a lot of specialty stuff there. I don't know anything about cats, but that's one of the things that we do on phone training for. And sometimes there's things that maybe people are not in our area, or maybe they just need help with house training. You don't necessarily have to go out and do an in-home session just to help them with house training. We could do that as a phone training session. So that's another aspect of the program as well. And then obviously the in-home sessions that we do. And that's pretty much what we're doing right now in the Chicagoland area. We do have the Sound Beginning program classes. One of our trainers, Jeff Joyce, he's a certified trainer down in, it's Southwest Florida. Inglewood is exactly the town that it's in, but he brought the Sound Beginning program down there. And one of our other trainers, Leanne Falkingham, another KPA trainer, she has the program up in Canada right now, and with a group called Puppy Power. And so that's what we're doing up there. So we're trying to kind of get an idea of what it's going to take to be able to put it together so that we can offer it to certified trainers all over the country.
And talk for just a couple minutes. I mean, I'm sure you could talk for hours on this subject, but talk about why positive reinforcement training is so important with this program as opposed to using force or other types of training.
I'll tell you my quick thought on that, but you need to have Steve go into it further because he has the behavior knowledge much more pronounced in his brain than I do. I look at it from a simplistic point of view. When I first started training, I got my first real dog. I mean, I always had dogs from the time I was a kid and everything, but I got my first, quote, real dog, when I got married and everything. And it's my home, my dog, my family. And I said, I got to take the dog to training class. How cool would that be? And I brought the dog to training class, and she wasn't very happy in the class. And she was barking at the other dogs. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I'm the only one that's got the Doberman in the corner that's barking at everybody. And the instructor at the time said, well, you just have to force that dog, and you have to pop that dog, grab that collar, and you pop that dog, and you stop that dog from doing it. And I just looked at her and I go, I don't really think so. I'd rather not be here. So I left because I thought, if that's what it takes to do dog training, I don't want to do it. So I went home with my dog and still totally in love with my dog, but I'm thinking I really, really would like to do this because it looks so cool. And that's when I met Pat Rattray, because I was a photographer at the time. And I was talking to Pat and I said, I've done all these pictures for you. I said, and I know you do dog training and stuff. I said, this is what happened to me. And she said, oh, no. She said, let me tell you what to do. And it was one sentence. She said, go back to the same training facility. You don't have to go there as a student. Go back to the same training facility, park across the street, sit in the car, and every time your dog sees another dog walk down the street, throw cookies at her. Really? Yep, that's all you got to do. And when that goes really well and you're not getting any barking left, call me and I'll give you step 2. And boom. I was just smitten. Wow. And within a very short amount of time, I had totally reduced that dog's reactivity because it was based on obviously fear. The dog didn't know what was going on. She was an older dog when I got her. And she was a breeder reject. So she had never really experienced all this stuff. She wasn't mean or aggressive. She was just trying to say to every other dog on the planet, stay the heck away from me. So that's when I realized positive reinforcement not only is effective and helps the dog, but it builds that relationship because I'm not mad at the dog anymore. I'm proud of the dog. I'm happy. I'm comfortable. I'm doing things that are making the dog happy and making me happy. And so from just a mutual relationship at both ends of the leash, I feel that that's what the most benefit I get from positive reinforcement. And I feel good when I'm training my dog that way. I feel good interacting with my dogs that way. And now from actually the scientific side of it, that's where Steve's going to take over, because I'm just like the regular person here. And now Steve can tell you the other side.
Yeah, so to add to the science to it, firstly, we see an overwhelming correlation of significant behavioral disorders and behavioral fallout, which includes increased fear, mistrust, and aggression with regards to traditional training techniques. Now, I see a large justification for these techniques as well. We've got to be dominant. We've got to be the alpha over our animals. And firstly, it's a raw myth is what it is. Dogs are not pack animals by nature. They're socially gregarious. But they're not going to form, a pack in the sense of a wolf pack. And certainly wolves are, if you ever take a look at a pug, a Pomeranian, that ain't a wolf by any means. They're pretty far removed at that point. Totally different animal. So with that, when we look at truly what dominance is, it's the maintaining of priority access to resources through force, aggression, submission, but primarily ritualistic display. And with that, when you actually see dogs display dominance in an inter-pack or artificial pack setting, which truly does occur and is a real phenomenon, it's very ritualized. And those rituals all geared towards avoiding bloodshed and avoiding direct confrontation. And when we have a dog that even to the least degree imaginable is otherwise sociable, has an innate desire to seek out, maintain, and really reaffirm friendly and affiliative relationships with people, what that means is that dog is not looking at you innately like another animal that can push, move, and bully around. It's looking at you as some sort of supreme being or demigod, which is exactly what we bred them to do over hundreds, if not thousands of years at that point. And to further add to that, not only is it very detrimental to our trust, as you can imagine, if you've got a boss that takes notice of all your hard work, rewards you accordingly, and gives you bonuses and so on and so forth, you're really going to go above and beyond for that person because it's going to be in your best interest to do so. Whereas, conversely, if you've got a boss that's on your case about very petty things and they're always on you, it's just, we've all had a boss like that. You're just trying to get through the day, just trying not to get yelled at really then at that point. And when we look at sort of a spectrum of dogs here, so on one end of things, you've got very, very hard dogs who are kind of boom, they're in your face, they're ready to handle business, they're very capable of very serious things if need be. It doesn't even mean aggression by any means, but you take your duties as a dog very seriously. You're very confident. Now, on the other end, we've got very, very soft dogs. Now, with those soft dogs, they're super easygoing. When it comes down to fight or flight time, they're going to be choosing flight. They're easily scared, easily startled, easily rattled. And in that continuum, in the exact smack dab middle, there's a very, very narrow band where traditionally this style of training may work well for that dog, the traditional punishment-based style of training. Doesn't mean you're building a good relationship, but what it means is you're able to get away with it, and your dog is succeeding, frankly, in spite of you, not because of you. Because you've got a dog that is hard enough to emotionally tolerate the aversives that you're throwing at that animal, but soft enough that they're not going to develop aggression or any other significant behavioral fallout. And the danger is that until you start potentially doing some serious damage to your dog, you don't know, you may have an idea, but you don't know where your dog is on that spectrum, whereas positive reinforcement works on the entirety of that spectrum, and there's just really not that much of a risk of fallout. You might not counter-condition your dog as fast enough or as well enough as you otherwise could, but you're not going to be doing your fearful dog harm. You're not going to be doing your dog that has some apprehension, that has some strange danger, resource guarding harm by using positive reinforcement. You just might not get, if you don't have the skillful application, the results that you want as quickly as you want them. But with punishment-based training, there's a very, very hefty risk that you're going to be doing harm. And in my professional opinion and experience, there is nothing that punishment training can do that's a skillful application. I stress skillful. Application of positive reinforcement can't do significantly better while building a much stronger bond with your pet.
I 100% agree with that. Absolutely, positively. So, Julie, at the end of the program here, tell our listeners where they can get your program.
soundbeginningprogram.com, or you can call us at 630-776-8197. We're in the office every day from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Chicago time, whatever the heck that is on your end of the world. But we always respond to emails and phone calls within the same day. So,
and you are also on Facebook at A Sound Beginning Program as well.
Yes.
Awesome. Steve and Julie, thank you so much for joining me today. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
If you'd like to participate in the rest of today's conversation for professionals who work with dogs and receive continuing education credits from participating organizations for listening, Visit gooddogpro.com and subscribe today. Use coupon PODCAST to get 40% off your first month or annual subscription.